one of them does liken white girls not dressing as Muslim girls dress to meat. A lot of them were made pregnant and they then had to convert to Islam. Some of them were trafficked to Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, other parts of the world.
Rupert Lowe just went on one of the biggest podcasts in the world and exposed the systemic abuse of over 250,000 white British girls. And yet, the British media establishment have been completely silent. This interview gained over 2 million views in just a couple of days, and the British establishment have said nothing about this. Instead, they just chose to attack Rupert Lowe over out-of-context quotes he made about the Dunblane massacre from over 30 years ago. In fact, their silence was so bad that people literally complained to the BBC about it. And when you see what Rupert Lowe says in this interview, you understand why. So we're going to watch this, but make sure you stay to the end because Rupert scratches the surface of the government's institutional cover-up, but we're going to blow the lid right off. Let's watch.
You keep using the term meat. Is that how they actually refer to it as?
That's how they consider it. Yeah.
What do they say? Like how are they?
Well, it's in our report that there was actually I think it was. Is it
a translation of?
I think Thomas Jefferson actually. It's in our report. Asked the Barbary pirates about the way in which they treated their slaves and their women. That was particularly slaves. They just also slavery is accepted within Islamic countries. So I think they have their own codes. They have their own terms of reference, and there is a quote in there. I'd have to look at the report to give it to you, but where one of them does liken white girls not dressing as Muslim girls dress. And he does liken it to meat.
Jesus.
And you know, that is an analogy he used. So I mean, yeah, I think that's what they think.
This rape gang inquiry report that you have just released, the number, I want you to say it because it sounds so crazy. If I say it, it's going to sound wrong. What the number of people that were victims, the estimate?
Well, we've estimated that a minimum of 250,000 rapes have taken place. It's probably much more, Joe. Because we published in here, I think it's a list of 147 parts of the UK where this is happening. Now, the government tries to tell you it's happening in Rochdale, Oldham, one or two, Bradford, one or two centres, and that's why their statutory inquiry, the terms of reference of that, have now been downgraded. So they make it look as if it's not a systemic problem, but just a little local problem, which it isn't. So we've listed here, and they're all in here, the places where we know it's happening from our rape gang inquiry. But every time we publish this, Joe, I get people emailing us or sending us messages on social media to say, what about Red Ruth in Cornwall? What about it's happening here, it's happening here, it's happening here. So I think it's incredibly widespread. And there's other people who've corroborated that 250,000 figure. That's an incredibly conservative figure. You can't be exact because the state is not collecting the data, which they should be doing. And we've been lobbying in Parliament to make sure that the state's collection of the data improves. And then we can actually see the extent of the problem and you can actually pinpoint it in the same way that we've done it in this report. So this is, I think it's linked to organised crime. I think it's linked to the drug trade. I'm pretty sure it's linked to the drug trade. And obviously it's linked to prostitution. So as usual, with an evil like this, and you've got girls who are transported around in the back of pickups and in cages. And at our rape gang inquiry, we had examples of girls who were raped by dogs and filmed, either anally raped or vaginally raped, and literally watched, filmed. And a lot of it's about servitude and about, there's other stories in here about women having to lick the feet of their rapists. It's about power, it's about servitude, and it's about the fact that Muslim men are taught to believe that they are superior, not only to women, but they're superior to people like yourself and myself, who are considered to be if you like, the infidels. And their job is to effectively spread Islam and effectively punish the infidel. And as you probably know, in the Crusades, if you lost to Saladin and you were a Knights Templar, a Crusader, you had two choices. You either converted to Islam or they killed you. And in the case of a lot of these girls, a lot of them were made pregnant. They were impregnated, and they then had to convert to Islam. Some of them were trafficked to Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, other parts of the world. So look, I mean, this is a massive national scandal, and I'm hoping, now I'm an MP, we've written this report, and this should stimulate debate. We've sent a copy of this on a PDF to every MP, and we're going to send this printed copy to all of them as well. Because everybody in power should look at this, and they should start to correct it immediately.
You use the term, or the term is used, rape gang. Why are you saying gang? And this is an organized practice?
Yes.
So it's not as simple as Islamic men are raping poor white girls. It's that they go out in gangs specifically for this purpose.
These are properly organized gangs who are grooming and abusing young girls as young as 10 or 11, and then literally trafficking them around the country. We know that from the testimonies we've had. So originally, when I went into Parliament, I was elected late. So I was elected in July 24. So at the tender age of 67. We heard them being referred to as Asian grooming gangs, which I think is a misnomer because it's unfair on, for instance, the Japanese or other Asian cultures who don't do this. So when thanks to Elon Musk, we actually did, and as you're quite right, thanks to him giving us a free speech platform, and Facebook's thankfully followed as well. So he's led the charge through his purchase of what was Twitter. So when I gave a speech in Parliament where I said they're not Asian grooming gangs. I'm going to call them what they are. They're Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. So I said this in Parliament.
Do you know why the grooming gang scandal really angers me? I think for two reasons. One is that we're obviously talking about little girls, like vulnerable children. And if we as a society can't or choose not to protect like our vulnerable children, then what the heck are we? Like, what are we doing? But the other reason is because I've seen how much evil has been allowed to continue because of either the fear of being called racist or because of the assumption that if you're black or brown or anything other than white, that you're always the victim and you're never the criminal. And I've seen, it angers me. Let me show you something. So you'll know this woman, Lucy Connolly. She was imprisoned because of tweets that she made, apparently stirring up racist abuse against non-white people, against asylum seekers, right? She went to jail for 18 months. Do you know who didn't go to jail? This guy, Adil Rashid. Adil Rashid was someone who literally had slept with an underage girl and was spared prison when the judge learned that it was his Islamic teaching that taught him not to value women. Like, you cannot make this up. So a Muslim who did that had been spared prison after a judge heard he went to an Islamic faith school where he was taught that women are worthless. Literally, this is what he was taught, okay? He said to a psychologist that he had been taught in his school in the UK that women are no more worthy than a lollipop that had been dropped on the ground. So the judge heard this. The judge deemed in the end that he was just naive. He also said he didn't know that the age of consent obviously wasn't 13. Like, he didn't know this. And that wouldn't actually be surprising because of the history of Muhammad, the founder of Islam, who had a wife he consummated when she was 9, right? So like, this wouldn't be surprising for him to think that. But then the judge sees what he does. And instead of the judge saying, you are the criminal in this matter, the judge sees him as a victim because he's Muslim. But the judge doesn't, I guess, ask the question, what do we do about these schools then that are teaching boys to think this way about women in our country and then carrying out these things. The conversation didn't even go there because, again, the fact that they're non-white means that they are considered victims, not oppressors, but oppressed. And so we always need to give them the benefit of the doubt. We always need to look out for their interests. Meanwhile, this girl easily could have seen her attacker, her abuser, down the streets because he wasn't even given any prison time. Like, this is what happens when that whole victim, oppressor, oppressed narrative continues. And the question we need to ask ourselves is, are we going to be able to stand up for what is right and what is true? Even if people label us as racist, even if people label you as racist, even if people call you a white supremacist or whatever, like, are you going to be able to stand up for what is true and what is just, no matter what anybody calls you? Because I hate seeing the evil that's gone on in our society unchecked because of this woke narrative. And that's one of the reasons why I think Rupert Lowe is so brilliant, because he ain't scared of these labels. And to see another occasion where Rupert Lowe just tells it as it is and completely shuts down the woke narrative, check out the video on your screen. I know you'll be blessed by it. And let's stand up for Christian Britain. Christian Britain is not about wokeness. It's about justice, no matter the color of your skin. Peace and blessings.